Some cars roar for attention and others move like silent thunder. And that second kind is far more dangerous, because in the 1960s, while Europe was busy building screaming supercars, America was quietly building something else entirely. Something most people never fully understood: executive weapons disguised as luxury cars. These were machines built for boardrooms and country clubs, wrapped in leather and chrome, and yet underneath that calm, composed exterior, there was an engine capable of embarrassing almost anything on the road. And that contradiction, that hidden violence wearing a tailored suit, is exactly what makes these cars so fascinating even today. So in this video, you're going to discover the fastest American luxury cars of the 1960s. Cars that combined executive elegance with terrifying horsepower. And once you see what these machines were truly capable of, you will never look at a classic American sedan the same way again. Stay until the end, because the very last car on this list might be the most shocking combination of luxury and speed this country ever produced. 1965 Chrysler 300L. This car did not need to shout because it already carried a reputation that spoke for itself. By the time the 300L arrived, the Chrysler 300-letter series had already spent almost a decade quietly building a legend among people who actually understood performance, and the L was meant to be the final chapter of that story. Imagine the context: the mid-1960s. American manufacturers slowly shifting attention toward the muscle car boom that was about to explode, and Chrysler deciding to close out its most exclusive performance lineage with one last statement. The result was this: a long, wide, impossibly clean body with a formal roofline that looked more at home outside a bank than a racetrack. And yet the moment you looked closer, you noticed the subtle aggression hiding in the details. The sculpted hood, the wide stance, the quiet confidence of a car that never needed to prove anything. And that is exactly where the magic of the 300L lies, because this car never relied on flashy styling tricks. It relied on presence. There is an important detail. The Chrysler letter series cars were built in extremely limited numbers every single year, and the 300L was no exception, which means very few people ever actually experienced what this car could really do. Under the hood, the 413 cubic inch wedge V8 produced around 360 horsepower, and in a car this size, that translated into effortless, almost embarrassing acceleration for a luxury sedan of its era. But here, the horsepower almost feels like a secret, because from the outside, nobody expected a car this dignified to move this fast. When you look at its value today, that reflects it too. A well-preserved Chrysler 300L can easily exceed $100,000, depending on condition and originality. And considering how few were built, that number keeps climbing every single year. 1966 Lincoln Continental convertible. This car did not just represent luxury, it represented power in the political sense of the word, because during the 1960s, the Lincoln Continental became the unofficial uniform of American authority. Presidents, executives, and Hollywood royalty all gravitated toward it, and that alone tells you everything about the kind of presence this car projected. Imagine the context: Ford wanting to create the ultimate symbol of American executive status, a car so elegant and so dominant that it needed no badges or aggressive styling to communicate importance. The result was this: a massive, perfectly proportioned sedan with rear suicide doors that opened like the entrance to a private office, and a silhouette so clean and restrained that it still influences luxury car design today. Everything about it communicated control: calm, deliberate, unstoppable control. And that is exactly why the Continental became such a powerful symbol, because it never tried to look fast, it simply was fast. And that contrast is what made it so intimidating in the right hands. There is an important detail: this exact generation of Continental became forever linked to a tragic moment in American history, which only deepened the car's cultural weight and its permanent place in the story of the decade. Under the hood, the massive 462 cubic inch V8 produced around 340 horsepower, more than enough to move nearly 2.5 tons of steel and leather with startling authority. When you look at its value today, that reflects it too. A well-kept 1966 Lincoln Continental convertible can easily exceed $90,000, and the right documented example can go significantly higher. And now I want to ask you something before we continue. Out of these first two cars, the disciplined Chrysler 300L or the commanding Lincoln Continental, which one do you think better represents real American power? Let me know in the comments. And if you think these two were impressive, wait until you see what comes next, because the next car on this list was not just fast for a luxury car, it was one of the fastest production cars in the entire world at the time it was built, and almost nobody remembers that today. 1963 Studebaker Avanti. This car sounds almost like fiction when you hear the full story. because a struggling, nearly forgotten American manufacturer somehow built one of the most advanced and fastest cars on the planet, and yet history has almost completely erased it from memory. Imagine the context. Studebaker fighting for survival in the early 1960s, desperately needing something radical to save the brand, and turning to designer Raymond Loewy to create a car unlike anything else in America. The result was this: a low, futuristic fiberglass-bodied coupe with no traditional grille, curved glass, and a shape that looked like it belonged in a science fiction film rather than a Studebaker showroom. Everything about it felt shockingly ahead of its time, and that is exactly why the Avanti still feels strange and special even today, because nothing else from this era looks remotely like it. There is an important detail. In 1963, a specially prepared supercharged Avanti was taken to the Bonneville Salt Flats, and it did not just perform well, it set multiple national and international speed records, at one point exceeding 170 miles per hour, making it briefly one of the fastest American production-based vehicles in the world. Under the hood, the supercharged R2 version of the 289 cubic inch V8 produced around 290 horsepower, and the ultra-rare R3 version pushed that number even higher, transforming this elegant road car into a genuine speed record machine. When you look at its value today, that reflects it too. A documented Avanti R2 or R3 can easily exceed $100,000, and the rarest record-setting examples are worth significantly more. 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado. This car looked calm on the outside, but underneath it, Oldsmobile had just done something almost nobody in Detroit had dared to attempt in decades, and that alone makes it one of the most quietly radical luxury cars of the entire decade. Imagine the context. American engineers largely avoiding front-wheel drive for full-size cars for generations, considering it too complicated and too impractical for something this large and this powerful. And then Oldsmobile decided to ignore that assumption completely. The result was this: a massive, low, sweeping coupe with hidden headlights and a fastback roofline that looked more like a concept car than anything actually sold to the public. And underneath that dramatic shape sat one of the most powerful front-wheel drive systems ever engineered for a road car. Everything about the design communicated forward motion, speed, tension, even while it was standing completely still. And that is exactly what makes the Toronado so important. Because this car did not just look different, it fundamentally worked differently from almost everything else on American roads. There is an important detail. The Toronado's front-wheel drive system had to be engineered to handle enormous torque without any of the traction problems that plagued rear-wheel drive performance cars of the same era, which was an extraordinary engineering achievement for 1966. Under the hood, the massive 425 cubic inch V8 produced around 385 horsepower, sending all of that power through the front wheels in a way that felt almost unnatural for the time, and yet somehow it worked beautifully. When you look at its value today, that reflects it too. A well-preserved 1966 Toronado can easily exceed $60,000, and pristine documented examples continue climbing in value as collectors rediscover just how important this car really was. If you're starting to feel like this is just another list of old cars, stay with me, because everything you have seen so far was only the warm-up. The cars coming next are the ones that truly blurred the line between luxury and outright danger. And one of them was so powerful in its most extreme factory form that it genuinely embarrassed sports cars that cost twice as much. 1963 Buick Riviera. This car did not need a single aggressive line to feel powerful, because Buick understood something most manufacturers completely missed during this era. Restraint can be more intimidating than exaggeration. Imagine the context: General Motors wanting to compete with elegant European Grand Tourers like the Ferrari 250 and the Aston Martin DB4, but wanting to do it in a distinctly American way without copying anyone. The result was this: a razor-sharp, perfectly balanced coupe with knife-edge styling, a low roofline, and a silhouette so clean that it looked years ahead of nearly everything else General Motors was building at the time. Nothing here feels excessive, and yet nothing here feels boring either. And that is exactly where the Riviera's genius lives, because it managed to feel both conservative and dangerous at the same time. Something almost no other American car achieved this successfully. There is an important detail. The first-generation Riviera is still widely regarded by designers and historians as one of the most important American automotive designs of the entire decade, and it directly influenced the visual language of nearly every Buick that followed for years afterward. Under the hood, the 401 cubic inch nailhead V8 produced around 325 horsepower, delivering deep, effortless torque that matched the car's confident, unhurried personality perfectly. When you look at its value today, that reflects it too. A first-generation Buick Riviera in excellent condition can easily exceed $45,000, and rare high-performance factory options push that number considerably higher. 1968 Cadillac Eldorado. This car represents the exact moment where American luxury stopped apologizing for its size and simply decided to dominate through sheer scale and confidence. And honestly, nothing before it had quite the same commanding presence. Imagine the context: Cadillac wanting to re-establish itself as the undisputed standard of American luxury, while General Motors engineers were also experimenting with front-wheel drive platforms for the very first time in a car this large and this prestigious. The result was this: an enormous, wide, perfectly proportioned coupe with a long hood, a commanding stance, and a front end that looked like it belonged to something built to lead rather than follow. Everything about this car communicated authority, from the way it sat low and wide to the way its chrome detailing caught light, without ever feeling excessive. And that is exactly why the Eldorado became such a powerful status symbol, because it combined genuine engineering innovation with unmistakable visual dominance. There is an important detail. This generation of Eldorado shared its advanced front-wheel drive platform with the Oldsmobile Toronado, making it one of the most technologically important luxury cars Cadillac ever produced, even though most owners at the time had no idea just how advanced the engineering underneath them truly was. Under the hood, the massive 472 cubic inch V8 produced around 375 horsepower, moving this enormous luxury coupe with a smoothness that made its true speed almost deceptive. When you look at its value today, that reflects it too. A well-documented 1968 Eldorado can easily exceed $55,000, and exceptional low-mileage examples can climb significantly beyond that. Now, before we move to the final cars on this list, I want you to think about something. Every single car so far has proven the same point, that America never needed to sacrifice elegance for speed. It simply hid that speed behind good manners. And the next two cars take that idea to an almost absurd extreme, because one of them was built specifically to be the fastest full-sized luxury car General Motors had ever produced. And the other one was so exclusive that most Americans in the 1960s never even saw one in person. 1966 Pontiac Grand Prix. This car existed in a strange and fascinating space between muscle car aggression and executive sophistication, and that exact balance is what made it so dangerous in the best possible way. Imagine the context: Pontiac already building a reputation as the most performance-focused division within General Motors, thanks to the GTO, and deciding to bring that same aggressive engineering philosophy into a more formal, more luxurious personal coupe. The result was this: a long, low, elegantly restrained body with hidden details, and a subtle aggression that revealed itself only when you looked closely at the stance and the wide rear haunches. Nothing about it screamed for attention the way a GTO did, and yet everything about it hinted at serious performance hiding just beneath the surface. And that is exactly where the Grand Prix found its identity, because it managed to feel like a genuine gentleman's express, refined enough for a business meeting, yet vicious enough to humiliate far more aggressive-looking machines at a stoplight. There is an important detail. Buyers could optionally equip the Grand Prix with Pontiac's legendary tri-power triple carburetor setup, transforming a car that looked like pure executive luxury into one of the most underestimated performance sleepers of the entire decade. Under the hood, the 421 cubic inch V8 in its most powerful tri-power configuration produced around 376 horsepower. Numbers that shocked more than a few unsuspecting challengers who assumed this was simply another comfortable family coupe. When you look at its value today, that reflects it too. A documented tri-power equipped 1966 Grand Prix can easily exceed $50,000, and pristine numbers matching examples continue to rise in value among serious collectors. 1969 Imperial LeBaron. This car existed almost entirely outside the public spotlight, and honestly, that is precisely what makes it so fascinating today, because the Imperial LeBaron was never meant to compete for attention. It was built for people who had absolutely no interest in being noticed by anyone. Imagine the context: Chrysler wanting to create an ultra-exclusive luxury flagship that could rival Cadillac and Lincoln at the very highest level, without diluting the brand through mass production or excessive advertising. The result was this: an enormous, meticulously detailed sedan with a commanding presence, deeply tufted leather interiors, and a level of engineering refinement that rivaled anything coming out of Europe at the time. Everything about it felt deliberate, unhurried, and supremely confident. And that is exactly why the LeBaron never needed to shout, because true exclusivity has never needed an audience. There is an important detail. Imperial as a brand was intentionally kept separate from standard Chrysler dealerships during this era specifically to preserve its ultra-premium image, which meant far fewer people ever actually experienced one of these cars firsthand compared to its Cadillac and Lincoln rivals. Under the hood, the massive 440 cubic inch V8 produced around 350 horsepower, delivering the kind of deep, unshakable power that perfectly matched the car's quiet, unbothered confidence. When you look at its value today, that reflects it too. A well-preserved 1969 Imperial LeBaron can easily exceed $40,000, and its rarity continues to make it one of the most overlooked bargains among serious American luxury car collectors. And now, before the final car on this list, I want you to know something. Everything we have covered so far has been building toward this exact moment, because the last car in this video was not simply fast for a luxury car, it was genuinely one of the fastest full-sized American automobiles of the entire decade, luxury or otherwise, and almost nobody outside serious car collectors knows that today. 1969 Mercury Park Lane. This car feels almost forgotten today, and yet in its own time, it represented one of the most surprising combinations of executive luxury and genuine straight-line performance that Detroit ever produced. Imagine the context: Mercury trying to carve out its own identity as the more performance-oriented alternative within the Ford family, while still delivering the comfort and prestige expected from a true full-size luxury flagship. The result was this: a long, wide, elegantly restrained body with clean horizontal lines, a commanding front end, and a presence that felt substantial without ever feeling excessive or showy. Nothing about the exterior hinted at just how seriously this car could move once you press the accelerator to the floor. And that is exactly where the Park Lane's secret lived, because underneath all that composed, dignified styling sat an engine that could genuinely humiliate cars half its size and weight. There is an important detail. This generation of Mercury shared much of its engineering DNA with contemporary Ford performance models, meaning some of the same technology developed for outright speed eventually found its way into this dignified, understated luxury flagship under the hood. The massive 429 cubic inch V8 produced around 360 horsepower, giving this enormous luxury sedan genuinely startling acceleration for a car of its size and weight class. When you look at its value today, that reflects it too. A well-preserved 1969 Mercury Park Lane can easily exceed $35,000, and its relative rarity today makes it one of the most underrated performance luxury cars of the entire decade. And when you look at all of these cars together, you start to understand something most people completely misunderstand about American automotive history during the 1960s. Speed was never absent from American luxury. It was simply hidden, wrapped in leather, chrome, and quiet confidence instead of loud exhaust notes and aggressive body lines. These were not cars built to prove anything to strangers on the street. They were built for people who already knew exactly what they had: silent thunder disguised as executive elegance. And that combination is precisely why these machines still fascinate collectors and historians so deeply today. Now I want to know something from you. Out of every single car in this video, which one do you honestly believe represents the perfect balance between luxury and raw hidden power? The disciplined Chrysler 300L, the commanding Lincoln Continental, the record-breaking Studebaker Avanti, the radical Oldsmobile Toronado, the elegant Buick Riviera, the dominant Cadillac Eldorado, the sleeper Pontiac Grand Prix, the exclusive Imperial LeBaron, or the surprising Mercury Park Lane? Let me know in the comments which one you would actually choose to drive. And if you enjoyed discovering the hidden power behind these elegant machines, you need to watch our video on the most beautiful European cars of the 1960s next, because there you will see the exact opposite philosophy in action. Cars built to announce their speed with every single line, rather than hide it behind quiet, executive composure. See you in the next video.